Last season, the New Orleans Saints went 9-8, and most people out there will tell you that the Saints overachieved last year because going into the 2021 NFL season, the majority of people out there thought that the Saints were not going to have a winning record. There were concerns about Jameis Winston, how he was going to perform at quarterback. Also, the wide receiver room was one of the worst in the NFL. However, the Saints were able to win 9 games, and they came really close to making it into the playoffs. And what was even more impressive was the fact that they were still in playoff contention even when Jameis Winston went down with his season-ending injury. And you got to remember that the Saints had abysmal quarterback play. They had Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, Ian Book, who had to start a game, and yet they were still able to stay afloat. And I think that was a testament to how great of a job Sean Peyton did as the head coach for New Orleans last year. Now, he's gone, he retired, and Dennis Allen is going to be stepping in and replace of him. Now, the New Orleans Saints have one of the most talented rosters in the whole entire NFL. And Dennis Allen, this isn't his first ever gig as a head coach. He formerly was the head coach of the then time Oakland Raiders, and he didn't really do a good job there, but with him getting a second opportunity, he has a better chance for success this go around simply for the fact that he has way more talent to work with this time compared to what he had with the Oakland Raiders. And not to mention, the Raiders were a dumpster fire back then. They still kind of are a dumpster fire now, but you have people who keep on asking, JT, with Sean Payton gone, the offense is going to take a step back in production. No, it's not. You want to know why? Because they have offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael, who has been with this franchise ever since Sean Payton arrived in 2006. And every single year that Pete Carmichael has called the plays for the New Orleans Saints, they have had at least a top 5 offense or better. So if you are a non-Saints fan and you're watching this video, Pete Carmichael as their offensive coordinator, they're not going to take a step back offensively. And plus, you got to remember that this team wasn't good when you look at the wide receiver room. Now you improve that. You sign Jarvis Landry in free agency. You draft rookie wideout Chris Olave in the first round out of Ohio State from this past year's NFL draft. And you have Michael Thomas coming back fully healthy. Not to forget, you have tight end Adam Trottem, who potentially could have a breakout season. So the New Orleans Saints have one of the most talented offenses in the NFL. When you look at the offensive line, yeah, you did lose left tackle Teron Armstead to the Miami Dolphins in free agency, but you did draft Trevor Penning, who has been making a lot of headlines so far throughout training camp for the Saints. He's been in 3 fights so far, and hopefully he ends up winning that starting left tackle job, but he has kind of been labeled as a developmental offensive tackle prospect, so maybe he might not start it right away. But outside of the left tackle position, you do have a really good offensive line. Left guard is pretty much secure with Andreas Pete there. Eric McCoy is really good at that center position. Ryan Ramczyk is one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. You do have Alvin Kamara in the backfield as well. Mark Ingram, even though he's getting up there in age, he still is able to produce really well as a RB2. And the defense, we already know with Dennis Allen still remaining on the staff, now he's just the head coach. With him pretty much overseeing the defense still, this is going to be one of the most talented defenses in the NFL. So my best case scenario for the New Orleans Saints this season is 13-4. I think that the Saints are going to have the best defense in the NFL this year. Because when you look at this defense on paper, this not only is one of the most talented defenses in the NFL, but this is probably the most deepest defense that we see going into this year, because they have a lot of depth at every single position, especially in the secondary. And that's why I'm so excited about this Saints defense, because not only does this secondary have great quality starters, but they also have great quality depth as well. But when you look at their starters at safety, everybody was like, oh, JT, what are you going to do with the loss of Marcus Williams? Well, they go ahead and they bring in Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. And I didn't even know that Marcus May was on the New Orleans Saints until I recently did a video about how good their defense was going to be not too long ago. And Marcus May is probably the most underrated safety in the NFL. We already know what the Honey Badger does. And then when you look at their cornerback position, Marshawn Lattimore had a phenomenal season in 2021. He's one of the best corners in the league. You have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a.k.a. Mr. Deuce Deuce. Paulson Adebo had a pretty solid rookie season. Now, he didn't have as good as a rookie season as guys like Eric Stoltz or Patrick Surtain, but he played pretty well considering the fact that he was a mid-round pick. And I think that he's going to improve this year. You also do have Bradley Roby. Now, I don't know if he's going to get traded or if he's going to remain on the roster, but you also do have P.J. Williams as well. So you have a lot of depth when it comes to your secondary. At linebacker, you have Pete Warner, Demario Davis, who still happens to be one of the best linebackers in the game. Your pass rush is still going to be really good with Marcus Davenport, Cameron Jordan. Like, this defense is stacked, and it's a large reason why I'm so high on New Orleans and why their ceiling is as high as what it is. And then on offense, as I mentioned earlier, you do have Pete Carmichael, who's going to be taking over the play calling. Every time that he has called plays for the Saints, they have had one of the best offenses in the NFL. And for the people who are going to say, well, JT, they have Mr. 30 and 30 Jameis Winston, I'm not going to continue to allow you guys to slander my boy Jameis Winston. If you don't know, I am a Jameis Winston fan. He is my favorite NFL player of all time. Don't ask me why. That's a story for a different day. But Jameis Winston was a different quarterback in 2021 than what he was when he last was starting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't forget, Jameis Winston had the best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL before he went down with his injury. 14 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Not to mention, the New Orleans Saints had a 5-2 record, and they pretty much would have made it to the playoffs if he would have stayed healthy. And think about this. Jameis Winston now has a better group of wide receivers to throw the football to this year. Jameis Winston most likely is going to win Comeback Player of the Year. Either him, Derrick Henry, or Chase Young. But I'm putting my money on famous Jameis. I'm so tired of you guys slandering my boy Jameis Winston. This is a different quarterback now than what he was a couple of years ago when he threw those 30 interceptions. And even then, all those 30 interceptions were not his fault. I'm just tired of the Jameis Winston slander. Like, everything he does, people got to try to make a meme out of it. And I get it. He's funny. You know, his interviews are really quirky and stuff like that. But I'm so tired of y'all harping on my dude Jameis Winston, man. Like, have some faith in my guy. Give him an opportunity. I promise you, when the Saints end up making it to the playoffs this year, it's largely going to be because of Jameis Winston. And don't be surprised if Jameis Winston ends up being an MVP candidate. You can screen record it, screenshot it, do whatever you got to do. My boy Jameis Winston is going to ball out this year. And I promise you, I'm not trolling. If you have listened to this podcast for some time now, you guys would genuinely know that I am a diehard Jameis Winston fan. If there was a leader of the Jameis Winston fan club, I would probably be the president of it. So, for New Orleans, best case scenario, 13-4. Now, my worst case scenario for this team is 7-10. Now, the reason why I have them at 7-10 is simply due to the fact that what if Dennis Allen still is the same head coach that he was when he was with the Oakland Raiders? And even if you do have a talented roster, you can still underachieve because coaching matters. Coaching is one of the most important things that people overlook when it comes to doing these predictions because they judge teams by how they do on paper and they don't take the coaching into a factor. What if Dennis Allen isn't really good at late game clock management and it ends up costing the Saints a couple of key games? So I definitely think the worst case scenario is 7-10. That's just if Dennis Allen doesn't show that he is a improved head coach compared to when he was last the head coach for the Oakland Raiders. But my overall record prediction for the Saints this year is going to be 10-7. Their schedule is pretty tough. And, you know, even though I am a Jameis Winston fan, Jameis Winston still does have to prove to everybody that he is indeed a better quarterback now than what he was when he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Dennis Allen still has a lot to prove also. We know that he's a phenomenal defensive mind, but we don't know how good he is as a head coach because he hasn't coached a single game officially as the full-time head coach for New Orleans. And the only thing that we can really go on right now is what he last did when he was in Oakland. So for the New Orleans Saints, if you do have some concerns about New Orleans due to quarterback or who their head coach is, I can understand that. But this should at least be a 10-win team. I know my worst case scenario was 7 wins, but honestly, they shouldn't win no less than 9 games, worst case. But, you know, the 7 to 10 is just if the head coaching isn't all that great. But I do think that Dennis Allen will be pretty solid as their head coach. I think that now with him getting a second opportunity, he's going to learn and improve from what went wrong when he was with the Raiders. He's going to make adjustments. And on top of that, this is pretty much the same coaching staff that has been with Sean Peyton for years. They may have a couple of slight changes to whoever their positional coaches is, but the main core of guys are still there, such as P. Carmichael. He's going to be instrumental in the success that New Orleans is going to have on offense. They are going to be way more talented than what they were last year at wide receiver. This defense is going to be amongst the best in the NFL. 10-7 is going to be my prediction for New Orleans for the 2022 NFL season.